The night of prom had finally arrived, and I was ready. The dress, the makeup, the excitement in the air, it all felt like a dream. But now, looking around at the sea of glittering faces, I felt something else too. Something darker. A strange electric charge buzzed in the air. It wasn't just the music or the lights. It was something more. Something I couldn't place. I didn't know what it was at first. Maybe I was just being paranoid. After all, prom was supposed to be the best night of my life. But then, I saw him. Standing in the corner, his gaze locked on me. He was a face I recognized but hadn't seen in a while. Darren Matthews. Quiet, unassuming. He'd always been a loner at school, always lingering at the edges, and I hadn't thought twice about him in months. Yet tonight, his eyes didn't just linger, they studied me. I felt a cold shiver crawl down my spine. I shook it off. This was prom. I shouldn't let anything ruin it. I danced for a while, lost in the crowd, but that feeling kept creeping in. Every time I glanced over, I couldn't escape the sensation of being watched. My heart beat a little faster with each moment, and then it happened. The lights flickered, the music stuttered, then cut out completely, plunging the gymnasium into a tense silence. Everyone murmured in confusion. My pulse quickened. The darkness wasn't comforting, it felt suffocating. I searched the room for a source of the problem, but before I could react, the lights flickered back on. In the middle of the dance floor, a body. Not just anyone. It was Carla, one of the most popular girls in school. She was crumpled on the floor, her eyes wide and vacant, blood pooling around her. It wasn't just her beauty that made the scene grotesque. It was the way her life had been ripped from her so easily. Screams erupted around the room, chaos unfolding in seconds. People ran, bumped into each other, tripped. I felt like I couldn't move, frozen in place, staring at the gruesome sight. Then, from the shadows near the door, I saw Darren again. He wasn't running. He wasn't reacting like the others. No. He was smiling. It was a smile of satisfaction. One that chilled me to my very bones. That's when I knew it. It wasn't just paranoia. Something was wrong. He was the killer. Panic set in as people scrambled to find exits. I didn't think, didn't process, just ran. I pushed my way through the crowd, my breath shallow, my vision blurry. I needed to get out, needed to get somewhere safe. But as I sprinted down the hallway, I collided with something cold and hard. I looked up. It was Darren. He hadn't just been following me. He'd been waiting for me. His dark eyes gleamed with twisted delight as he stepped closer. "You shouldn't have run," he said softly. The words sent a sickening ripple through my body. I stumbled back, but there was no one around to hear me. I was alone with him. No one could save me. "You know, prom is all about promises," he continued, his voice low, almost amused. "A night you'll never forget, right? Well, I'm about to make sure you never forget this one." I backed away, my heart pounding in my chest, but then I felt it. The cold touch of something sharp against my neck. His knife. It was then I realized the truth. I wasn't just the next victim. I was the last. Prom night, the culmination of everything I had dreamed of throughout high school. I had spent months planning every detail, from the dress to the perfect updo and even the perfect date, Blake. But as the clock ticked closer to the big moment, something felt off. The gymnasium at Crestwood High had been transformed into a glittering ballroom, all sparkles and fairy lights. The music was bumping, the crowd was buzzing with excitement. and everything seemed perfect. Until it didn't. The whispers started around 9:30 p.m. First, it was just a few hushed conversations near the punch bowl, then it spread like wildfire. I overheard some girls in the bathroom talking about it, their faces pale. The local news had just reported that a dangerous killer had escaped from a nearby prison. A man named Victor Grayson, convicted of a string of brutal murders that had shocked the town 5 years ago. I tried to push the thought out of my mind, but the uneasy feeling lingered. I watched as the students around me continued to dance, laugh, oblivious to the horror that was unfolding just outside the doors. But then, as I looked out the gym windows, I saw something. A figure in the shadows, tall, dark, moving with an unnatural quietness. I shook my head. It was probably just someone dressed in black, but the thought gnawed at me. I had heard the stories about Grayson, the way he stalked his victims, the way he would corner them in the dark. It was almost as if he enjoyed the fear, the power. The lights flickered once, twice. I saw some students glance nervously toward the ceiling. Then the music stopped. Silence. A cold draft swept through the gym, and for a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Then a voice came over the loudspeaker, calm, measured, and chilling.
Attention, everyone. This is a warning. You are not safe.
The words sent a shiver down my spine. I looked around trying to find the source of the voice, but no one seemed to know where it came from. Then, without warning, the doors to the gym burst open and a figure stepped in. His eyes gleamed with a feral hunger. The room gasped. Some students screamed, and chaos erupted. It was him, Victor Grayson. His clothes were ragged, his skin pale, and his eyes, those cold, dead eyes, were unmistakable. He moved quickly, his boots echoing through the gym, and before anyone could react, he grabbed a girl by the arm and dragged her into the shadows. I heard her scream, but it was swallowed by the noise of panic that erupted around me. I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my chest. I looked for Blake, my date, my best friend, but he was nowhere to be seen. I tried to move to do something, anything, but my feet felt like they were glued to the floor. Grayson's laughter echoed from the hallway. Who's next? Who wants to join her? I snapped out of my trance and turned to run. I grabbed my phone, dialing Blake's number, but it went straight to voicemail. Panic set in. I had to find him. I couldn't lose him. Not like this. I bolted out the back door to the gym, hoping to find some kind of an escape. But I wasn't alone. The figure was there, waiting for me. Victor Grayson was standing in front of me. You thought you could get away. I didn't know what to do. I was trapped. He took a step forward, raising a gleaming knife in his hand. Prom night is a night to remember. And then I heard it. A loud crash from behind me. Run! Jake's voice. He tackled Grayson with a force I didn't know he had. For a brief moment, Grayson was distracted, his attention diverted as Jake wrestled with him. I didn't wait to see who would win. I turned and ran. My heart in my throat as the sound of the struggle behind me grew louder. I reached the edge of the school grounds and kept running, not daring to look back. I didn't stop until I found a group of students huddled near a streetlight. I collapsed to the ground, gasping for air, my body shaking uncontrollably. I didn't know if Jake made it out. I didn't know if anyone would. The night that was supposed to be the happiest of our lives had turned into a nightmare. And in that moment, I realized something. There was no escaping the horror. Not on prom night. Not with him on the loose. Lily had been looking forward to prom for months. The dress was perfect, her makeup flawless, and her date Jake was everything she could ask for. Everything seemed like it was going to be perfect, just like in the movies. But there was one thing Lily couldn't shake off. It started in the days leading up to prom. She received strange texts from an unknown number. The messages were unsettling. "You'll regret breaking up with me. I know where you're going tonight." Lily initially thought it was a prank, but the texts grew more frequent. The sender seemed to know intimate details about her, where she'd been, who she was with, even what she was wearing. Then it clicked. It was Ethan, her ex-boyfriend, the one she had broken up with 2 months ago when he became possessive and controlling. After the breakup, he had disappeared, or so she thought. At first, Lily didn't want to tell Jake about the text. She didn't want to ruin their night, but deep down, she felt a cold sense of dread. On the night of prom, she tried to push the anxiety aside. Jake and Lily arrived at the venue, a lavish ballroom adorned with fairy lights. The music was loud, the energy contagious, and for a brief moment, Lily forgot about the text. But then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw him, Ethan, standing by the far wall staring at her with an unsettling intensity. His expression was unreadable, but the chill crawling down her spine was undeniable. He shouldn't have been here. He wasn't invited. Lily's heart raced. She grabbed Jake's hand and pulled him towards the dance floor, trying to shake off the panic. But Ethan followed, waving through the crowd, his eyes never leaving her. She kept looking over her shoulder, but he was always there, lurking in the shadows. Jake noticed her unease. "What's wrong? Who is that guy?" Lily hesitated, unsure how to explain. "It's Ethan, my ex." Jake's face tightened with concern. "Why is he here? Did you invite him?" "No," Lily said, her voice shaking. "He shouldn't be here." The music seemed to blur, the laughter and chatter fading into the background as Lily's fear consumed her. She could feel Ethan's eyes on her like a vice. Every few minutes, she would catch a glimpse of him standing in the same spot, watching her, never blinking. "Let's leave," Jake said, pulling her closer. Lily didn't argue. She wanted to get out away from Ethan. They quickly made their way to the exit. But as they stepped outside into the cool night air, they saw Ethan standing by her car. Jake stepped forward, his jaw clenched. "Hey Ethan, leave us alone. You've got no reason to be here." Ethan didn't respond. He only stepped closer, his presence growing more menacing. "You think you can just move on? You can't leave me, Lily. Not like this." His voice was low, almost a growl. Lily wanted to run, but she felt frozen, trapped. Jake tried to push past him, but Ethan grabbed his arm with terrifying strength, his fingers digging into Jake's skin. "I said, she's mine," Ethan hissed. Suddenly, the sound of approaching sirens pierced the night. A police car was driving down the street. Ethan released Jake and took a step back, his eyes filled with malice. He turned and vanished into the darkness, disappearing like a shadow. Lily and Jake rushed into the car, shaking, the adrenaline making their hearts race. They didn't look back. The rest of the night was a blur, but the feeling of being watched, of being hunted, never left her. As they pulled away from the venue, Lily received one last text. "This isn't over." The words haunted in her mind as the night turned colder and darker. Ethan might have disappeared from sight, but Lily knew he wasn't far. She couldn't escape him. Not now. Not ever.